Does your lead to client onboarding process look really confused and have a lot of manual steps that you have to take? I know, right? It's just so annoying. What if I told you that there was a way that you could actually streamline this and make it so that you wouldn't have to do all the manual work? Just, semi-automate or fully automate clicks of buttons, right? Let me walk you through this and show you what it looks like. Okay, so this is a process that basically gives us all of our major touch points from the minute the user schedules a meeting until the minute we onboard them. And what does that look like? Well, let's say the user schedules a meeting using Calendly or Acuity or my favorite tool of choice, Schedule Once. We want that meeting to automatically be entered into what we're using as our CRM. Now, I don't actually use a proper CRM right now because I don't really care to track all of the emails and all of the messages and all the phone calls that I'm having with clients. And anything that I do, I just put into what I use as a CRM, which is either in Airtable or in Asana. Today, we're going to talk about Airtable, but you could do this with any project management tool. Just create a pipeline. Very simple. Let me show you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a Zap. It's going to look at the meeting type because the way that Schedule Once works right now is that you can't automatically filter it based on meeting, but I know that that is something on the roadmap at some point. At least that's what I've heard. So when a meeting is booked in Schedule Once, it will only continue if it's the type of meeting that I'm looking at now, which is my introduction meeting. So only if the meeting type is the introduction meeting, has the word introduction, only then will it create a record in Airtable. And this is what my Airtable table looks like. Basically, I have my pipeline, the initial meeting, the proposal, the follow-up, and then whether it's closed, won, or lost, right? Your pipeline may look a little bit different, but that's fine. The idea here is that you set this up in the way that's comfortable for you. Another way that a client may enter this pipeline is not through scheduling a meeting. They may be just reaching out to you in a different way, in which case you could have a qualification form or you could have a form on your website that's, just initial reach out, initial client wanting to find out what your services are. This is a form created in Airtable, very, very simple, basically just basic data. And then depending on whether it's an internal form or an external form, you can leave some of these fields in or out, like project type, for example, what project are they interested in, what service of yours are they interested in, and then the status, where in your pipeline are they? Okay, so let's go back to the workflow. If it's not an introduction meeting, great, and the process. Video's over, right? Well, not so much, not quite. Let's review this a little bit more in depth. Let's say this is an introduction meeting. So we're going to create a contact in our CRM or project management tool. Right now we're using Airtable, but it could use Asana, ClickUp Monday, etc. We have the meeting with the client. What I usually do is I take notes within the task. Now in Airtable, that's going to be problematic for you if you want this for the long run, because depending on your plan, those notes may expire. So you want to have a different field for notes and write them in, not in the comment section. You fill out through the meeting the basic variable fields that you're going to use later in your proposal. So if I know what project type it is, if I know what the cost is, if there's a description, if I have a timeline, due dates, and the price. And then what happens is once the meeting is over, I have all of these variables already there. I can tweak them a little bit for phrasing if I need to, but then I actually have a Zap that creates a proposal based on a record in Airtable. So what that means is I like to do this manually when I change it to send proposal or checkbox send proposal. I will have it go into a different view in Airtable. I have this as updated as well, simply because I want to be able to control it more, but you could just have this as a new record in Airtable. It sends a new record in Airtable. It automatically creates a document in PandaDoc, and it uses those variables that I've just defined, the price, the date, and it's based on a template that I've already uploaded. Now, I use PandaDoc in this example, but you could use HelloSign or DocuSign or so many others like SignOut. Like, there's so many options. But basically, the idea is to send it to your e-signature tool for them to see the proposal and approve it. Next thing that's going to happen is that the proposal is going to be created in that e-signature tool and automatically sent to your client, depending on the settings that you have in your e-signature tool. But this is what you would set up there directly. And once the client signs it, we get notification. So when we get the notification, I want a Zap to create the invoice. So let's look at what that Zap looks like. So when the document is completed in PandaDoc, and completed means signed, and signed even by a number of people. So even if you have 3 or 4 people that have to sign off on a proposal, this would work for you. Then it will find a customer in Wave. It finds it through the email, which is part of the PandaDoc template anyway, and then it creates an invoice in Wave. Now, I've used Wave here, which is good in the US and in Canada, but if you're in other countries, Wave is not going to work for you. This would work as well with QuickBooks. This would work with Xero. This would work with Sage. Any tool that integrates with Zapier, any accounting tool that integrates with Zapier, you could probably do this depending on their integration level, but this is pretty basic. So now we've sent the invoice to the client. That's done in the invoicing tool automatically. In some invoicing tools, you can't do it there automatically. So you would actually add a step to your Zap saying, here, send invoice, right? Easy peasy. Client pays. Now, once the client has paid, depending on your tool, you can automatically update the table in Airtable as well. So if you're going to be using that, I have not set this up because Wave, that integration with the payment, not so much. But if you're using QuickBooks, absolutely. The only thing that I would recommend is that you pass to QuickBooks as a custom field, the Airtable record field, so that you can actually find it later easily. Although you could also search for email or whatever. That would work as well. So like I said, this is a manual process, but once the status of the invoice is updated in Airtable, then we automatically have Zapier say, okay, great, they've paid. We want to onboard them. So for onboarding, I need to create a few folders for them in my cloud of choice. In this case, it's going to be Google Drive. So again, when there's an update in the record to an Airtable, create a folder. The update is, when the invoice has been paid. Create a folder in Google Drive. I want to put in specific files that I'm going to use. These are templates that I may need for my process. And then I'm going to create a subfolder in that folder. And to the subfolder, I'm going to give client permissions. And then I'm going to send them an email. So what have I done? I've created a parent folder and I've put templates into it. And then I've created a subfolder for all client communications. So from now on, any files that I want to share with the client, I'm going to share through that client portal folder because I've given them permissions through Zapier. And then I'm going to send them an email, and that email is going to tell them, hey, all of your files and folders can now be found here. And I'm going to give them that shared link. So that's the way that I'm going to work with them. And that's going to streamline, instead of having back and forth emails going, where did I put that file? Where did I put that folder? It's all going to be on Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever your tool choice is, right? And the last thing that I'm going to do, and I have this as the step here with the email, right, which is that onboarding email, but you may want to not use it through Gmail. You may want to pass that URL over to whatever email marketing tool that you're using and have that under the client contact, create a contact for them. My tool of choice is ActiveCampaign, and I like sending onboarding processes through there, where they know exactly what's coming. And it's a great way if you have a more complex onboarding process. So again, what we've done today is we've covered the basic onboarding process from lead all the way to client. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. And if you want to know how to do this a little bit more in depth, I'm going to link below to a blog post. It's the first blog post of 6 microblogs that explains this a little bit more in depth. And if you want to go even more in depth, right below, I'm going to actually also link to a series of short clips and this workflow and all the things that you'll need, all the Zaps that you'll need in order to put this process in place really easily. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And as always, like and subscribe. Thanks so much.